Welcome back to Wizard101, a card game that follows a pip and mana system that determines whether you are able to use your spell. Generating a white circle means that you have 1 pip and yellow means 2 pips, so here we have a total of 3 pips. The strategy to this game is that you blade into an AoE indicated by this yellow symbol. However, not all schools get an AoE early on. Every school but Life and Death get a 4 pip AoE given them for free. Life and Death get access to the AoE at level 48 costing 7 pips, but so does all of the other schools. So when picking a school, do you want to play the game on fast mode or slow mode? The easiest school to complete Wizard101 is Fire, Mist, Storm and Death. However, again, Death gets a slow start because they lack their AoE. With Fire, Myth and Storm, they do the most damage, but Storm struggles to stay alive in the beginning. So the best starter school to complete the game both quickly and easily is Fire or Myth. If you are returning back into game as a Balance or Ice and you are lower than level 40, then I highly recommend you to make a new character. This is because Ice and Balance are the weakest, so you will spend more money on a membership with how long it will take to complete the game. The reason why those schools exist is because they do really well in PvP, however at the moment Ice sucks both in PvE and PvP, so if you're an Ice, definitely play a new wizard. Now that we have covered how the game works and what schools to play, let's develop some good habits by learning shortcuts. The most useful way of traveling is pressing Ctrl S, which brings up the crown shop. Don't worry, we're not buying anything. These 3 areas are the most useful ways of traveling to places. The top one brings you back to Ravenwood Wizard City to either talk to your professor or to go to the commons to purchase potions, or you can play the potion game to refill up your potion for free. Wizard City and the Arcanum are the only places in the game where you can buy potions, meaning if you were in a different world, you can now see why this is a very useful feature to quickly access potions. Secondly, the loyalty store brings you to the shopping district to either claim your loyalty points every month, or most importantly, travel to the bazaar to sell or purchase items for gold. You will also never disconnect from the game if you have the bazaar open, or alternatively, Ctrl Shift will make your character spin so that you don't disconnect when you go AFK. Lastly, this area brings you to a world that your main questline is in, indicated by the star icon. This means you will rarely use a world gate because you can travel to places via the crown shop. The only reason why we need a world gate now is if you accidentally collected a side quest or you're doing a crafting quest, then they will not show up in the crown shop. Keep in mind it only brings you to the world your questline is in and not the exact location of your quest. However, this is when the social tab becomes useful, where you can teleport to players that are in the location of your quest. The downside to this is that they might be in a battle, so you kind of have to apologize and then help them kill the extra mob that you dragged in. Previously, I mentioned side quests, so if you want to complete the game as fast as possible, stop collecting them. They are indicated by the exclamation mark icon, or if the dialogue gives you the option to accept or decline, then that also means it's a side quest. Now, if you are a returning player and have forgotten the very basic shortcuts, let's quickly go over them. B brings you your backpack, C shows your stats, to which damage, accuracy, gold, and power pips should be our main line of focus. P shows your deck and what treasure cards you have. M brings up a map, Ctrl M lets you change realms. O shows your chat logs. R replies to the most recent person that has messaged you. I shows your pet stats. Z lets you take screenshots. Ctrl Z shows you where those screenshots saved onto your computer by pressing this icon. Ctrl T hides or enables your quest arrow so that it doesn't get in the way when you're pet training. Ctrl V mutes the volume of the game, and Escape brings you the game settings. Here you should go into option 4 to enable backpack locking if you haven't already, which prevents you from accidentally deleting or selling something valuable. The locking feature is also useful in seeing what new items you have received because they will show up unlocked. If you have any friends on the internet that you wanted to add, meeting up in an exact location is a thing of the past. Instead, we send a true friend code which we manually type out, and on their end, they can copy and paste it, and now you guys are friends. From here, if you have a 2-person mount, you can add them to a group and they can now ride your mount so that you can quest together. Most likely, you will not have enough crowns to buy a 2-person mount, but that is okay because if you're not questing with anyone, then all you need is a single-person mount. You can purchase your first mount with gold in the crown shop when you scroll all the way down till you can toggle the gold tab. However, they are quite pricey, so your main priority when starting Wizard101 is to get enough gold. To do this, always sell the gear, housing items, and treasure cards that you do not need in the bazaar instead of hoarding them. However, never sell your reagents because you need them for crafting. If you still do not have enough gold, you can purchase a temporary mount at Professor Zeke in Wizard City. You will then be able to quest faster, meaning more items will drop for you to sell in the bazaar so that you can eventually afford a permanent mount. If this video is helping you so far, please leave a like because I'm sure you can see how much effort this video took with how long it is. To quest faster, we now need to optimize our deck so that we can kill within 1 or 2 rounds for the minion battles. To do this, our goal is to not have more than 10 cards. This then reduces to 7 or 8 cards after we learn enchantments in the world Celestia. If you have not reached Celestia yet, we need enchantments via treasure cards. In order to get them, we need gold. But if you are saving up your gold to buy a mount, then we need to ask someone in the comments to trade you monstrous treasure cards. But if you do have the gold, you can access the Arcanum through the housing tours in Wizard City. Click top rated and filter the houses alphabetically so that you can find the Arcanum apartment. You then exit the door and wait until the world has loaded and find the monkey NPC located as a spell icon on the map. Then purchase about 50 of them. They are a one-time use, so after you pack them in your sideboard, you can access them in battle by discarding a card, which is usually your one hit, and then enchanting the spell you want to use. This will instantly kill the mob if you did not fizzle. You will then need to refill your sideboard every few battles. Keep in mind you cannot enchant the spells down here, so I will recommend you to remove them out of your deck. Once you get access to your first AoE, we now change our deck to include 2 blades, 2 AoEs, 2 one-hits, and a 3-pip spell. This totals to 7 cards, and in the sideboard you have monstrous treasure cards. What you do is that if you failed with a white pip, you blade into the AoE, but if you started with 2 power pips, you can instantly use the AoE, killing them all within 1 round depending on how much health the enemies have. If you forgot to refill your monstrous cards like I did here, we can still kill them without them. We blade into the AoE, then do the exact same thing, blade into the AoE, and they should be dead, or else hopefully a 3-pip or your 1-hit kills. If you are a life or death skull that is under level 48, a life kookaburra or gloomy eye pet can give you a 4-pip AoE card. You can search for it in the pet kiosk located in the pet pavilion Wizard City and find the one that costs the cheapest. You don't care about the talents because your pet will guarantee to fail, which will be explained in the pet training section later. You just care about getting the other person's pet to have access to the card. Your deck will now look something like this with blades and 2 hits. In the sideboard, you have more blades and monstrous treasure cards to stack enough blades until you can kill. The monstrous cards are in case you didn't kill with the AoE so that you can enchant your remaining 2 hits. As we mentioned earlier, you will not be able to enchant your AoE because it is an item card, meaning once you hit level 48 and learn Scarecrow or Forest Lord, your pet will now become irrelevant. You can still use it for the item card, but you should be training another pet in the meantime, which will be explained in the pet training section. After every school permanently learns monsters at level 56, your deck will now look like this with 7-pip AoE, 4-pip AoE, 2 enchants, and a blade. Then your sideboard will have extra hits in case you didn't kill, as well as mass prisms or a singular prism depending on which one you need, and those can be purchased from the bazaar. This will prevent deck fails in your main board. So now that we have that made, we will go into equipment set and label this as our questing set. Now we will make a boss setup by equipping a different deck, and it should look like this with either a main deck feint or an amulet feint down here. Our treasure card will have feints, blades, and extra hits. So when you're questing, you will equip your questing set for the minion battles, and then when you get up to a boss, you switch to your boss deck. The only time the boss deck changes is if you are against a mob that is the same skill as you, to which you add prisms because it will be too difficult to draw from the side with all of the other cards that you have in there. Every time you upgrade your gear, you can delete your previous setup and then replace it with a new equipment set, but you still have the same decks. Once you learn Gargantuan or Colossus, you switch out the enchantments to the new ones you learned. Once you get to the world called Polaris, your deck will now look like this. Once you get to the world called Novus and Wallery, your minion deck will still look like this, but you now add Empowerers or Dark Pact in the treasure card because every mob starts spamming you with weaknesses. Your boss deck will also change to include a shadow hit, which will look something like this with Empowerers, Feints, and extra hits in the TC. In the deck setups, you notice that we had these cards, so how do we get them? About every 5 levels you automatically get a training point, but you can get more of them by completing the Z quests in every world. You can always use Google to help find where they are. Now that we know how to get training points, the first spell you learn is Feint. It will cost you 6 training points and you access it by going to Nightside and heading to Dworgen. I recommend you to unequip your deck first because every time you train a spell it will go into your deck, which messes up your deck setup. Then at level 25, we have access to Elemental and Spirit Blades at Nile in Krokotopia by entering the boat. If you are these schools, you train both Elemental Blade and Spirit Blade, but if you are Fire or Storm, you just train the Elemental Blade because you're the school that does the highest amount of damage, which is why the other schools had to train Elementals to support you, but you will never really support them because they are weaker than you. At these levels, you can train your enchantments. In the spawn point of Celestia, collect a quest from this girl, and then you'll have access to the Sun School trainer over here. Then at level 56, go to the floating island to get Montrose and Gargantuan. Colossal is in Drum Jungle Zafaria, where you need to complete the Midnight Sun side quest given by Coco. You will then have access to the Sun Obelisk to train it. While you are in Zafaria, talk to the zebra at spawn and collect a quest called Astral Weeks. This will lead you to talk to Mandisa in Zamunda to collect this quest called Stars and Stripes. Complete that so that we can access another spell later on. At level 86, you get Sharpened Blade, and to train it, you need to complete the side quest Turn Off the Sun given by this guy in Azteca. Sharpened Blade will enchant your blade to 45%, which enables you to now use 2 different blades to make your AoE stronger. You will also be able to train Potent Trap to add more damage to your feints in boss fights. At level 110, you can train your last enchantment at the Arcanum through the Astral Door. Here, you also train Aegis, which prevents your blades from getting removed. You also train Indemnity, which prevents your traps from being removed, such as in the Malicer fight. To access Frenzy, we need to train Berserk first, which is why you did the Stars and Stripe quest to have access to it. Now that we have Frenzy, it's a 40% damage aura, meaning it does more than a regular blade. So this will now be your deck setup. Frenzy is especially useful against myth mobs because they tend to earthquake your blades off. That is all that you need to train, but if you are a life wizard, you should train Radical, which enchants your heals to do more healing. Now, you'll probably have a bunch of training points left, so you can train Reshuffle in Colossal Boulevard if you wanted to. If not, just save your training points because if you ever wanted to PvP, you'll have to learn a shit ton of spells. I will not mention them here because the meta for PvP changes like every 4 months, so then every guide ends up being outdated, which is why you can never find good PvP guides on YouTube. Welcome to Gear Setups. I will not be mentioning any crafted gear, I will only mention the free to play essentials so that players can complete the game the fastest. From levels 1 to 30, you will rely on Bazaar gear. The stats that you are looking for are damage and power pips. There are 2 different damage talents. Flat damage is represented by the hand and percentage damage is represented by a fist. We don't want to get slapped by the hand, but we always enjoy a good fisting.
What did he say?
So ideally you want to come to the bazaar every 5 levels and upgrade your gear by toggling the usable button and filtering through the highest to lowest. At level 30, Cyrus Drake will tell you to go meet him in Ravenwood, which brings you to Aquila. Here you will farm the Zeus gear, but before entering you need to find a person that is higher than level 130 to help you. Mark the location and use a crown shop to teleport to the commons so that you can find someone to help you. Alternatively, you can go on Twitch to ask around in people's chat. If you see me live, I'll gladly help you if I'm not busy. Ideally, you should try to get the full Zeus gear, but if you just got 2 pieces of the Zeus gear, then that is good enough. You can substitute the last gear that you're missing with the senators. Every run that you would do will guarantee you the Sky Iron Haster wand, and that is the best one all the way up to level 100. For the Athame and rings, you will continue to upgrade them in the bazaar. At level 50 or 56, you can buy an amulet that gives you the Feint item card. This means you can now stack 3 different feints on a boss and you will use this amulet all the way to 170 for boss fights. But for the minion fights, if you manage to get like a better amulet that gives either pierce or damage, then you can use that. But then yeah, again, for the boss fights, you use the feint amulet because it gives you 5% more damage than a regular feint, and you take in less damage from the enemy so that you don't die during the boss fights. At level 60, you farm waterworks in Crab Alley, where you can respawn the final boss by going in and out of another room. They will drop you the robe and the boots. For the hat, it is from the squid near the beginning of the waterworks dungeon. And yeah, make sure to do all of these dungeon farmings that I recommend in this guide with a higher max wizard. At level 100, Dorgan will ask you to visit her, which gives you the quest to do Darkmoor. You will need to complete the first 2 dungeons of Darkmoor first before you can farm the Darkmoor gear at the graveyard. Ideally, you want every gear piece from Darkmoor except the wand, but if you didn't get the hat, then that's fine because you will get a better hat from the bazaar later. If you didn't get the ring or athame to drop from Darkmoor, then you can farm the level 90 Alpha Omega ring from the secret boss in Mount Olympus and the blade of the Felled Titan in the secret boss of Tartarus Aquila. With these athames, you are able to unlock a triangle socket with crowns or a socket wrench so you can socket an accuracy or a power jewel if you have collected any while questing. When you get up to the Shadow Palace in Chrysalis, you will then farm the Tree Roots, which drops the level 100 ones that gives you more damage, pierce, and critical. It's a massive buff compared to your Sky Iron Hasta. At level 102, you finally upgrade your deck in the Bazaar, which gives you an extra starting pip so that you can cast your 7-pip AoE within 2 rounds. At level 104, the deck in the Bazaar now gives you the ability to socket a triangle jewel to increase your accuracy or power per chance. You unlock this slot with crowns or an artisan socket wrench, which can be dropped at Morganth in Chrysalis or the Exalted Housing Gauntlets if you ask people if they still have any. At level 125, you will buy the Cabal hat in the Bazaar. You might also continue to wear your Darkmoor boots if you needed the accuracy, but if you didn't need the accuracy, then you purchase the Cabal boots, which give you more damage. At level 148, you can get wands from the Bazaar. At level 150, I was going to suggest farming Merciless gear and skip Novus, but KingsIsle has changed it so that Hall of Heroes needs to be done in challenge mode. This means no enchants and no dying, so unfortunately KingsIsle now forces you to skip Merciless gear and farm Novus, where both the gear drops and pity system is the worst in the game. So I wish you good luck farming those, and you can watch my guide in the description on how to farm the Manticore fight. The only difference now is that you are not competing to get unpolymorphed. Everyone gets unpolymorphed at the same time when the boss is killed. Keep in mind, you do not need perfect Aeon gear, you just need the masterpiece set of your school, because our last gear setup is from Walru, and you will be replacing every piece of Novus gear. The amulet and deck now gives you a circle slot, which will enable you to socket damage jewels, which are exclusive to Walru. For your athame, you will socket pierce jewels, which you can also craft when you farm enough dream water from Freddy Croker or Crash Bandicoot. For Storm, the best robe is locked behind raids, to which you need to join an active guild that does raids every week, which is somewhat rare nowadays. You'll be invited to a Discord call with 11 other players, and the raid will last 3 hours. Then you will need to wait a week to do another raid, and it could take you more than a month to get this robe. Once you get the robe, you will upgrade it at the guild Anvil, which requires Novus reagents. You will then have to farm Novus fights, and honestly, this whole thing is such a lengthy process for just one robe, so it's up to you whether you think it is worth your time spent on Wizard101. Now we will go over how to solo boss fights or how to play as a support as any school. You'll notice that in the deck setups, we play very aggressively without shields or heals. This is because you rarely need them if you have farmed for the gear I recommended in the gear setups. But there are some challenging boss fights that you might encounter, so here is how to solo them. The strategy is that you make sure to kill the minions with your AoE first, and if you still end up dying, you can return to the battle with just the boss left. Then if you conveniently have learnt shields that corresponds to the school of the boss, then you can pack them in. If not, it is actually better to purchase tower shields in the bazaar and add them to your treasure cards, because you notice that bosses often use spells that are not their school. From here, you hope that you draw a tower shield first round to negate some of the boss's damage, then you feint and blade as normal into your kill shot. If you are playing as a support because your friend has higher damage than you, then you will use a different deck to add blades and feints in both the main deck and treasure cards and enter the battle before them. You will notice that when you're questing, you have the option to team up, but there are only a few important fights that you desperately need to team up, but for the others, you should be able to solo them unless you chose a shitty school. Since this video is getting a bit too long, I will scroll through a list of fights that you probably need help in, so take some screenshots to refer back to them later. Welcome to pet training in Wizard101, where you will waste millions of gold and thousands of snacks if you do not pet train correctly. The worst way to train a pet is finding a random pet in the kiosk with the talents that you want, or hoeing around with random people that have the stats that you want. So why is this bad? Firstly, it costs way too much, and secondly, the other talents that they have are filled with trash such as mana gift, critical, make us fairy, etc. For example, you would think that if I hatched this pet with the exact pet in the kiosk, that it should in theory give me an exact replica back. Wrong. After spending more than 3 million gold with over 20 hatches, I have yet to succeed in manifesting the exact same talents back. This is because my talent pool is filled with trash and their talent pool is filled with trash, so when we breed, our baby carries over shitty talents because we both YOLO'd pets to mega. To pet hatch correctly, it unfortunately requires a lot of patience, so you should start pet training as early as possible every time you get online to quest. You probably have seen everyone with this little dinosaur, but the reason why they have this is because they invested more than 60,000 crowns gambling their real life money on this pack for a chance of getting the exact amount they need for their school, which will give the player more damage by meeting the stat bonus. If you do not get the exact amount you need for your school, which happened on my myth character, then you don't get the extra damage. This means training a dinosaur pet is essentially as if you had a piggle pet or a dragon pet or whatever pet in the game, because the item card is useless. So if this is the case, where we are only focusing on the talents, then you can refer to this screenshot where we will be making a quint damage Quetzal pet. In the screenshot, you can see that the talents has everything we need to manifest, along with resist talents and pierce talents. All of these are useful for your wizard, but if we specifically wanted all damage talents with mighty, then manifesting the resist or pierce is considered a fail. With that being said, let's get into what the process of pet training looks like. To start, we need to equip a pet that is adult or older than adult, and we find the name of the Quetzal that you need for your school. So if you were to make a fire pet, you will find the Inferno Quetzal, not the Ash Quetzal, the Infernal Quetzal. From here, you find an adult that has a mighty talent, max stats, and check that the derby talents are all common. You will also notice that every other pet has the same talent pools because they are all the same pet, meaning we can hoe around with these pets because they have the same talents. Or you can refer back to the screenshot that tells exactly the name of the pet that you should be looking for. Hatches are also insanely cheap, which is why this is a very beginner friendly method. Once you hatch a pet, you can instantly hatch it with gold. Then play the dance game 25 times until you unlock the skip game option. Once the pet is adult, you stop training it and you will hatch again the next day because you will have a 12-hour cooldown before you can hatch again. After that cooldown is over, you hatch in the kiosk again, train to adult, and you do that every day, hatching with your most recent pet, so make sure to keep track of what your recent pet is. The goal is to hatch until all the dots match up. Here I'm doing the exact same process with a friend that has the same talent pools and common derby talents, but instead of it being a Quetzal pet, it is a s'mores pet. I'm contacting him every day to pet hatch until the talents line up. Once that is the case, then we finally have a single parent, so we will rename it in the dye shop to Miss Boomer, which is my way of keeping track of the parent pets. Then we hatch again to get a father parent, where we now have both parents breed to produce a child that we can YOLO to mega. If it fails, then we rehatch with the parents and try YOLOing the second child and so forth until it succeeds. You notice that I am self-hatching the parent pets in the pet hatchery. Since we got an exact duplicate of the kiosk pets, we don't need to hatch with kiosk anymore, we just hatch with ourselves. Overall, you can see that pet training is a very long process, but the method that I recommended is the cheapest and it does not cost as many mega snacks or energy. The only time it is demanding of those is when we are YOLOing the children to mega, which you would have done if you didn't even use this method and then you end up failing your pets. If you ever wanted a different pet that gives a better item card called Sharpened Blade, you will need to find a real person in-game that has the exact pet and talents that you want. You will then hatch with that same person until you get the pet appearance of their pet, which gives you the item card. Train it to adult, then hatch with them the next day and see if you can YOLO that pet to mega without failing. If it keeps failing, then unfortunately you will have to copy their exact pet talents, lining up all the dots, making the two parents and doing the self-hatching process all over again. It is a cancerous process because KingsR makes a shit ton of money from us when we invest in energy elixirs or pro potions so that we can make a pet quicker with crowns. After getting the pets you want, you can then aim to find someone with a dapper corgi pet to help you make an energy pet for gardening. Welcome to gardening, to which our main goal is to be able to plant couch potatoes. These drop mega snacks to train your pet faster, but it also drops regular snacks and empowers, which sells for a lot of gold in the bazaar. This is why everyone has been telling you to get couch potatoes, because you will never run out of snacks and you will never run out of gold. Melinda Wu gives our first quest to gardening, which brings you to Farley to buy all the gardening spells as well as a gardening gnome housing item, which makes your plants grow faster. If you don't have the Red Barn Farm yet and you haven't reached rank 5 gardening, then you should also buy a small pot and a medium pot from him. We will then need to level our gardening rank up by planting 1 key lime. Now, place your medium pot in your dorm and the gardening gnome, then plant the seed. If you check the Wizard101 wiki, we can see that key limes like honey sickles and a water mole statue, which will make your plants grow even faster. These can be purchased in the bazaar. Now you will visit your dorm after 12 or more hours whenever you decide to play Wizard101 again to take care of your garden. The only time that your plant dies is that if you visit your house too often without attending to the needs of the plant. Meaning they will not die if you went like a whole month without playing the game. They will still be alive because you didn't go into the house that your plants are in. If you didn't have any key limes lying around, just plant boom shrooms until you reach rank 5 because you'd rather spend time farming couch potatoes instead of key limes. After you purchase a red barn farm, you will go to Crocotopia to learn large soil. You will then watch this video by Ferric that shows you how to create a 69 plot with advanced movement. Then, farm for your couch potatoes in either Grizzleheim if you are a low level or Imperia if you are a higher level. Then, purchase these gardening spells whenever you reach the ranks. Now we will be talking about how you get energy gear. The best way is to just buy the Heroes of Lemuria pack, or you find someone with a Grand Tourney Arena housing gauntlet, which is what I did for the free to play method. If you want me to lend you my Corgi energy pet, enter my Discord server in the description and message me or Blank Orbit for a lend. In the bazaar, you'll be able to purchase rings that give you a tiny bit of energy, and if you did your crafting quests, you already crafted a wand that gave you energy in the Arcanum. Welcome to crafting, which isn't compulsory to do anymore, but crafting a seed vault and gear vault is a must to store your plants and extra gear since they are the biggest culprit of reaching a full backpack. You can also craft pet jewels and regular jewels for your wizard if you need power pips, accuracy, and pierce jewels. The downside to crafting is that it is extremely expensive and takes a lot of time finding the reagents, so everyone in this game actually hates crafting with a passion. So make sure that when you are questing to always collect the reagents on the floor because they are a pain to find later. You get your first quest outside in Old Town Wizard City, which requires you to find Mistwood. Then she wants you to craft 2 daggers of absolute. Every time you receive these quests, you need to remember to purchase the crafting recipe for what the person wanted. Pressing J on your keyboard will bring up the recipes so that you can see what reagents you need. Because you need to craft 2 daggers, you need double the reagents. The rocks or gems can always be purchased by the NPC next to the person giving you the quest. Now we just need Mistwood and cattails, and so for this Wizard City quest it is very easy where they conveniently locate cattails and Mistwood in this area, so I'm just going to switch rooms and do that multiple times until I get the 4 that we need. Then we can go to our house and place the crafting station that we got and craft the 2 athenes. I will then quit and log back into game, which brings me to where we previously left off to submit my quest, which will lead me to the next one in Krokotopia. Just a reminder that when you get up to Azteca in your main story quest line, you are rewarded with potent trap treasure cards. Do not delete them or even use them because you need to keep them for one of the crafting quests. Speaking of Azteca, I recommend you to actually start crafting when you do reach Azteca. You know, your first crafting quest is in Wizard City, but yeah, I recommend you to start crafting in Azteca because that world is really difficult and you're presented with boss fights after boss fights, so then you end up getting stuck, and so in that meantime of getting stuck and you can't find someone, then you have something to do, which is your crafting quests. Welcome to how to get jewels in Wizard101. With all these jewel slots, we can get the jewels we need through crafting or farming. Monkey spiders can drop you all the pet jewels you need except the selfish talent jewels for your pet. They also drop the pip jewels and accuracy jewels to socket onto your athame and dex. However, the farming process would take quite long if you needed a specific jewel, which is why we do the crafting method. If you specifically needed Pain Giver, Pain Bringer, Defy, or Proof, you can farm it in the Unforgiven Dead Housing Gauntlet. Pierce jewels can be farmed from the baboons in Thieves' Den, and lastly, Archmastery jewels can be bought from the shopping district for life and death so that they can use Sugarfalls or Ratspin if they manage to acquire the spell. Or if you needed higher Archmastery rating, then you can buy them in Novice when you reach that world at spawn, and they can either be in the form of a square or a tier slot. Crafting the jewels is a painful process because it is both expensive and time consuming with limited crafting slots, but it is the best way to get your dealer, giver, boon, or selfish talent jewels for your pets. The recipe can be bought from the pet pavilion, and the snack reagents that you need can be bought from the snack vendor in Pigswick Academy. Titanium for the selfish talent jewel is one of the hardest reagents to acquire, which is why you had to manifest it in the talent pool, or else you have to find someone that can sell you titanium in the bazaar. Pierce and accuracy jewels can be crafted by purchasing the recipe in Mirage, and it requires turmeric reagents, which is quite pricey, but you can purchase that at spawn. I only recommend you to do this method as a last resort if you couldn't get your pierce jewels from farming Thieves' Den or accuracy jewels from just naturally doing your quests. Because when we hit Wallaroo, you get all the jewels that you ever need, which you can craft pierce, damage, pip, accuracy, mending, health, fishing, and pip jewels. Now that you have completed the entire game, you can do side activities like housing, fishing, Beast Moon, Decathlon, PvP, raiding, or completing the side worlds called Grizzleheim or Pigswick Academy. Again, don't forget to like the video, and if you have any questions, you can ask them during my live streams on Friday and Sunday nights on Twitch.